Batter up.
Rob and Chris, they're on the air. Yankees, Mets, they're everywhere. From the Bronx to Queens, the diamond gleams. MLB talk, the ultimate team. MLB is the place to be. Rob and Chris with the pitch you'll see. Swinging stats and stories fly. Baseball talk that's amplified.
And welcome to a new episode of NY MLB Talk with your hosts Rob and Chris as we cover the Mets, Yankees, and all of Major League Baseball. And if you're on YouTube right now, hit that sub button. We would appreciate it. And also, if you want to follow us on X or on TikTok, follow us at NY MLB Talk. And you can also follow Rob at R Marasco. You can follow myself at CP7NY. Rob, we got a great guest on today. Please introduce him so we can get going.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yes, we have former Major League pitcher Chad Durbin. He played for the Royals, he played for the Phillies, he played for the Tigers, he played for a lot of teams, which we're going to get into. But I'm really excited to have him on. I've been waiting for this. Chad, thanks for coming on. How's everything going with you?
Oh, Rob and Chris, good to be on. We're in Mardi Gras down here in Louisiana, so it's a week off of school, kind of like a winter break for everybody else, but we get to make it fancy and tie a name like Mardi Gras to it. But the kids are off all everybody's kind of rolling. It's 65, 70 degrees out, kind of like spring training in Louisiana. So, just chasing our tails.
Yeah, that sounds nice. Tomorrow is Fat Tuesday, so it's great. And we can't wait for spring training started. Finally, it's been a long winter in New York. It's been nothing but ice in New York City.
It's been cold, huh?
It's been crazy. Snow hasn't melted in over a month. So thank God spring's on its way. So let's get into this. Okay. I want to talk to you about your early career first with the Royals, because you were on some great, Royal teams with some great players. Do you remember your major league debut, September 26th in 99?
Vividly, yeah. It was an old Tiger Stadium, not the new fancy one. Old Tiger Stadium where Ty Cobb took pisses and all that stuff. I got called up late. I got called up 3 days before that, which is late in the season. I was in Wichita in AA and back home getting ready to go to the Arizona Fall League with the prospects, right? And I get a phone call from our minor league directors, Muzzy Jackson. And Muzzy calls me. He's like, "Hey, Chad, how you doing?" I'm like, "Man, it was such a fun run. We won the AA title against Tulsa." He goes, "Hey, how's your arm feeling?" I was like, "It feels great. Couple days off. I mean, I'm ready to go to Arizona." He goes, "Could you throw tomorrow if you needed to?" I'm like, "Absolutely. Like, why are you asking me that question? I'll get a pen in if you need me to." And he's like, "The club needs you to meet him in Detroit." And I was like, "What?" I didn't think, like, in my head, I'm young. You're 21 years old. You're like, wait, yeah. I can get called up from the house in Baton Rouge in AA. And so I go there and I faced Luis Polonia was the first hitter I ever faced. And I had played RBI baseball on Nintendo with like him leading off for the Tigers back in the day. So for me, it was like, holy crap, I'm facing this guy in this packed house that was not the norm in Old Tiger Stadium. All the guys that were playing with me are like, no, this isn't how this is. It's usually a half-packed house. It's, it isn't that cool, but being full, playing catch, it felt like I was in the movie The Natural, like just running out there. And I hadn't relieved a ton in my life, so I didn't know what to, other than running in from shortstop in high school to go throw an inning. I had to warm up down the line where, believe it or not, because it was the last series ever played there, which is kind of notable, that like I remember like not getting heckled, like not getting barked at, and everybody was kind of really happy to just be there for that series. And I ran in, I had my head down while I was running. I looked up, and Tony Muser, who reminds me a lot of Coach Brown in Major League, raspy voice, and what the hell are you doing, kid? Like I looked up and he's got the ball, and Mike Sweeney's like, "Whoa, slow down!" And I get the ball and try to go get some outs, and I did. It was 2 1/3, 1 hit, maybe 1 walk, 3 or 4 punch outs, no runs.
That's great. What does it feel like? Two questions. This is a 2-part question. What does it feel like the first time you stepped on a major league mound and it was packed, like you said, because it was the last series in that stadium? What does it feel like that first moment you're on the mound and you're just looking around the stadium?
I was trying not to do exactly what you just said. Like, yeah, now I would love to know what that looked like. What's the second, third deck look like? What's the roof there look like, from this mound? I just, the catcher, talked to me and this is sad. I can't remember who caught me. I mean, it's one of those where it was such a, overwhelming for a 21-year-old kid, such an overwhelming amount of information. And you just were trying to calm everything down to the point where you just play catch and just throw the pitches you need to, not walk guys. Please don't screw this up for yourself. What a heck of an opportunity. And I guess once you start to rip through the baseball the first couple times, the rosin bag feels the same. The mound kind of feels the same. To me, it was reflecting on it. I had to ask people for their thoughts on it. Like my mom and dad were there with my sister and some extended family. And because it was the last series ever there, they were sitting around families of Tiger and baseball, legends. Ty Cobb's extended family is there, and that's who they were sitting with in family sections. So I'm asking them, and they're like, "Man, it was such a bigger deal than they compared it a little bit more to the World Series than to just going to a game where your kid's making his first outing." But yeah, it's I expected. I'll tell you what, in this day and age of all the velo and everybody wanting to throw on a track man and hit the highest number. And I thought for sure that I was going to throw the hardest pitches of my life, and I didn't. I was 89 to 92, touched to 93, threw strikes, had 3 pitches that I landed for strikes. I pitched really well, but in my head I was like, man, I'm going to throw 100. Here's where it happens, and it didn't. But it was a heck of a memory, and I remember standing in front of the urinal where everybody's like, hey, you need to take a piss here because Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle, and I couldn't squeeze out a drop. I was so nervous. I was a freaking mess. But
that's
I got
great.
it done.
And the second part, and then Chris, I'll get to you, Chris. Second part of that question is, what was it like? I mean, I know it was an older locker room, okay, and clubhouse. What was it like, to get to finally be in a major league clubhouse? What is the feeling of that?
Man, there's a little bit of me that I love baseball. I loved baseball as a kid. I'm from Illinois, so I watched a ton of Chicago Cub games and loved watching. I mean, I love the Cubs, but I actually loved the way the Cardinals played and the White Sox. So for me, I had heard enough Harry Carey, Steve Stone, all those guys just say, hey, these rookies, they just need to be seen, not heard. Don't say, I mean, it was very little eye contact. It was just keep your head down, get out of the way when everybody's in the clubhouse, get the hell out of there. When everybody's leaving it, make sure you're out there first. And I guess that was kind of my focus. And what's funny is, so that is the 26th. The last day of the year was probably the 30th or 31st. And we were playing Cleveland, who was first in the division, probably and as I tell the end of this story, they say, hey, Durbs, you're going to start the last game of the year. You're starting against the Indians. I was so fired up. I mean, just vibrating for a couple days while I was waiting to do it. And we end up, they say, oh, there's some weather, we'll probably push the game back. Well, they end up coming in to the club, hey, game's canceled. And of course, everybody's packing bags, getting ready to leave. I was the only guy, I think, in the whole place, both sides of the locker rooms and clubhouses and stands and everybody. I was the only guy mad. I'm like, how can I needed to pitch that game. This was my chance to make the team next year. That's my takeaway from that and it was Cleveland's lineup was gross. It was Lofton, Vizquel, Alomar, Tomey, Manny. I don't know if the 21-year-old in me wanted to face them. The 48-year-old speaking right now, kid, it's probably best that you didn't.
Yeah, that's great. Chris, go ahead. You wanted to ask something.
Yeah, Chad, you played on Kansas City 3-4 years, starter every year, and then you signed with Cleveland, and you start to transition to the bullpen. Now, what was the thought process to put you into the bullpen, and how was it for you to change to be a relief pitcher?
No, that's a good question. So in 2002, to start the year, I actually got hurt in January throwing, kind of building towards, because I was going to be the second or third starting pitcher on that team in Kansas City, and we had loaded roster, Beltran in center, Jermaine Dye in right, Johnny Damon in left, and Mike Sweeney. We just had a really good team with some starters that if a guy like me, who was 23 at the time, if I could just take what happened the year before, I think I went 9-16 with like a 4.7. But I had the second lowest run support in the league. And if they just, for the sake of scoring runs, if they just score a couple more runs, I'm probably going to win 12 to 15 games. Might lose the same amount, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to eat innings, maybe get 200. And so going into that year, I was excited. Ended up not, my elbow hurt, pitched in spring training, made it to the season, but 2 bad starts. And then, back then I didn't know I needed to put my foot in the ground and say, hey, I'm hurt. Like, we need to go get this checked out. They sent me down to the minors. I ended up going to, I think, New Orleans first start, threw a changeup. It gave a little bit, got numb. When got MRI, didn't show anything. So they sent me down to Haines City, Florida, which was where, they aren't in fancy Arizona. That's where they are now. Back then it was right outside of Disney, which wasn't terrible if you're healthy. But when you're hurt, it's just miserable. So went there, 5 months of kind of purgatory and trying to figure out life, and then came back to Double-A to make a couple of starts. And I was, throwing at 80, 85 miles an hour. It hurt. Finally said something. We went and got an MRI, and 2 days later I had surgery. So you think about that arc when I came back. So in the offseason that year, I mentioned Muzzy Jackson earlier. Muzzy was the director of minor leagues and kind of personnel in general for guys on the big league side in their offseason. Well, they non-tendered me because I had 3, my options were gone. So they called me. I remember being in Warsaw, Indiana, is where my mom and sister and them lived. Got the call. Muzzy's like, hey, they're going to get in touch with you to sign you back. If you want to do your rehab and stuff with us, we'd love to have you. And I didn't get a call back. And so I think a day after Christmas, 26th, maybe the 27th, Mark Shapiro, who is the president of all ops in Toronto now, but he was with Cleveland forever. He called me. He's like, hey, Chad, I haven't seen a transaction where you've signed. You're sick, 5 months out of Tommy John. We loved you. We tried to trade for you, get you in Cleveland. And so Mark's like, hey, we got Tim Maxey's the strength conditioning coach that came over from Kansas City. He's here. That's a big component of the rehab process. And our second trainer, on the big league side, is the rehab guy for Cleveland that year. So you have 2 components of a really important piece of everything there in Cleveland. And he said, man, we're going to rebuild this. We got CC. We've got a chance to be a pretty good team by 5, 6, and 7, which they were. And so when I went over there, we'd love to have you start. And so I came back. I relieved, I think, a couple times in the end of 2003. I got back from my Tommy John to the big leagues inside of a year, which, I'm going to pat myself on the back. It was hard work. And that was a goal, and I made it. But then the next spring did really well. Didn't make the team as a starter out of spring. They had their 5 guys, but was down there with Terry Mulholland and, Jake Westbrook, who was a longtime starter. A bunch of other guys ended up playing for a long time. Mark and company got it right. So I started, go down to the minors, didn't do all that well. I was still kind of figuring out what my stuff was. And to answer the question, it's really hard. To be one of the 5 starters in a place like that, you got to hit pay dirt. You got to be good. And they're trying to win. Guys are trying to keep jobs as managers. I get the math now. My wife said it the other day. She's like, you're going to have to fight the urge, because after every outing, if it was good or bad, Rob, Chris, I would just say, man, but I felt good. And she's like, at some point, 3 years out of your surgery, it ain't about feeling good anymore. It's about going and getting outs. It's about going and producing. But so I came back as a starter, Chris. I threw 199 and 2/3 innings in Toledo in 2006. As a starter was really good. And then Kenny Rogers got hurt in 2007. I ended up starting for half the year. And then Jim Leland would, he liked me as a 5th starter, but they had Kenny Rogers came back, and then I think they got rid of Maroth. But guess who was waiting in the wings? This 6'7", left-handed freaking stud, Andrew Miller. Like, who are you going to start, me or him? You're going to start him. So they'd send me down to the pen, which was fine. But, that team was loaded too. And so I relieved there a little bit, and then decided I wanted to start or try to start in Philly. And when they brought me in, they're like, hey, Adam's got a 3-year deal. We're going to start him. And to be perfectly honest, I really liked relieving. You're going to chase success, but I like putting on a cup every day. I like the idea that I might pitch, that I was a little bit more a part of it. Like, the starters are a part of the team. They're important, but they're on an island. as
Yeah.
much as the relievers are, but the relievers are a little more relatable. When you're in there 3 out of 4 days, or they see you warming up, you're going to get big outs. I don't know. It just fit the personality that where I was in my life at that time. It just fit, and so, and you get into important situations, you're more part of the team. And like I said, you chase success.
Yeah. Real quick to answer one of the viewers' questions. Yes, Dan. Old Tiger Stadium was called Briggs Stadium for a couple of years in the late '60s, I believe. So to answer your question, all right. So Chad, you're in Philadelphia, and you had success in Philadelphia. You made it to 2 consecutive World Series, and you were a world champion. Okay, so tell us about those years in Philadelphia, because they used to kill. I'm a Met guy. You guys killed us for a couple of years, and I'll bring up one game later. But tell us how it felt in Philadelphia to play, especially with the crazy fans in Philly.
It was great. Playing in the Midwest. So it was Kansas City, Cleveland. Detroit's maybe a little bit harder on their players, just to be perfectly honest, but less of the, hey, you'll get them next time. It's okay, kid. We still love you anyway. That's not how the East Coast speaks to their players. Jim, and Jim told me, this is after the fest, a couple years later, 09, maybe 10, when he was on the team in 10. And I had faced him in Cleveland, and he said, man, I was hitting the ball pretty well in Philly, but I would strike out in a big situation against Roy freaking Halladay, and they would boo me. He's like, you can't take a day off. You can't make an error at first. You just can't have a lapse in baseball judgment. And he said, I really enjoyed it. It was really you go to the field, there's no, hey, I'm just going to go get 4 ABs, or as a pitcher, you go, I'd look up at the board and I'd have a 1.7 ERA. I'd go 2-0 on the first guy I faced, and it's boo. Me too. I get it. I'm feeling the same thing. And I think maybe that part of me that's such a competitor, and all the guys are competitors, but the part of me that's already doing that to myself is, I'm already booing myself. I get it. I agree with you. You should be getting on my tail for this. And I think the media, the fans, the players, the former players, just the whole, wrapped package of what Philly and New York and Boston and Chicago, you mentioned, what they're all about. If you're not in, you're in the freaking way. And they're if you can't answer the questions to the media the right way afterwards, if you can't go out and have a better outing after you just crap the bed the day before, if you can't do that, you don't belong here. There's other places for you to go play. And I loved it. And I embraced it. And for whatever reason, maybe I was better equipped to do it at 29, 30 years old. I thought that Philly, the age of the team, you had a couple veterans. Jamie Moyer just lopsides the age gap a ton, being 45 at the time. But if you really think about what Jimmy Rollins is 29, Ryan Howard was 26, Cole Hamels was young, but Utley 29, 28. I came in at 30 years old. He really had a team full of guys. Jason Worth, there's a bunch of guys that were similar ages, going through similar stages of their life, having kids and doing all that stuff. And I had no idea. We came in and beat Philly, I think 3 of 4 in Detroit in 07. Came in, we were a better team at the time than they were. They were really good. We came in, beat them, and then, I was like, but that team's got a chance to, I looked at their roster, I looked at the way they played, I looked at the bank, and I was like, ooh, that looks like a good place to play. Maybe not a good place to pitch, but a good place to play, and they're going to win. And so I just gravitated to it. In that 07, 08 offseason, Rob, Chris, so I get non-tendered by the Tigers.
Yeah.
I didn't throw 100, and Dombrowski likes relievers that really just pump gas because he's thinking about the playoffs. Same reason he signed Castellanos, and we can talk about that in a minute because I'm sure it's a topic any of us can talk about. It's kind of fun. It's good theater. But he didn't bring him in to be this great, season 162 season player. He hits really good pitching really well in the postseason. That's why he wanted to go get him. He's trying to win a World Series. So, but I get a call from, Dave DeLucci, who's from Baton Rouge. He's like, hey, man, I enjoyed Philly, but God bless. Dude, if you don't catch fire and do well, they're going to eat you alive. and just different guys that I know really well. They're like, hey, don't go there. And even Jim Leland and Dabrowski, you should go to the Pirates, be their third or fourth starter, go get 200 innings, get paid, get on the map, and then go start for one of the some other team. And I mean, I remember sitting at home and thinking, no, like I just won. It was a lot of fun to win in Detroit. Like I want to win. And they seemed like one of the best options. And spinning this to exactly what my thoughts are is that rivalry is freaking cool. Like the Mets and the Phillies, like you don't really know about it when you show up until you hear Jimmy saying something to the media, and then it's all over everywhere.
Yep.
And then you hear David Wright answering back, but then David Wright's too nice to like just tell him what he's really thinking. But he's still and I played in a fantasy football league with him. We end up, I congratulate him for the number of being retired. He's a great human being. But the back and forth, and then the media just loves it. They're like, oh, sweet. We got something to do during spring. We're going to fire shots at each other. This is going to be great. And then you go play at Old Shea, and you see the third deck of people like getting in fights during a game. Yeah. And you're like, wait a second, this is really happening. These people really care whether we suck or not. And the both teams are really good. I think it came down to the last couple weeks, and we ended up winning in 08. But I just remember thinking, like, every time we went in there, it doesn't matter what the records are. It's really like the fans are going to be on our, the old bullpen was a little bit different than the new bullpen in City. In City, they can't really get to you. Like, they want to yell at you, and they're looking around for you, and they're like, maybe there's one of them. Oh, that's a bullpen catcher I just chewed out for 15 minutes. My bad.
Yeah, I love City Field. It's beautiful, but Shea was my place. It was just, it was a zoo. It shook. It was crazy. And in 2007, 2008, the Marlins did a number to the Mets and knocked them out. And you guys were in, and you deserved it. I know Chris wants to talk to you about the 2008 World Series, but
09.
I mean the 2009 World Series. So I'm gonna let him pick it up. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, no, I mean, all right, now you're in Philly. You win the championship in 08, and then 09, you're back in it. Now you got the Yankees and their guys, right? Now you got the Jeter, the Pettit, Bernie, not Bernie, but now you got the 2000.
Everybody else, everybody but Bernie.
Yeah. Right, exactly. How was it pitching in that World Series compared to the year before? I think you beat Tampa, right?
Yeah, we beat Tampa. I think they knocked off Boston in 7 games to get in, and we were on fire. You see it all the time. If teams get hot, they just they roll through the playoffs. And in 9, I felt like we had the better team. Plus, we had just won, a little battle tested, but it was the Yankees, and it was their first year with the new stadium. I had pitched in the old one, and it felt like it was haunted compared to the new one, which it probably was. And but I remember like it felt more like a World Series. They shut down Broadway so you can get to your 5 buses to the hotel. It's right. The celebrities on the field coming to Philly, going there. I mean, Jay-Z is he's got a pregame concert going on the infield. And it's probably 5 to 10x total media when you're playing them versus playing Tampa. And we were prepped for it. It wasn't like there was any moment where you beat us because the media was overwhelming. The Philly guys are ready for it. Yeah. And this affected both teams, so this isn't an excuse why we didn't win. But both teams had the bird flu. Remember the bird flu in 2009? Yeah. Yes. So both teams had it during like the playoffs into the World Series, and both teams had a couple guys still lingering and some guys that didn't get it. But I remember thinking about. I remember Ruben Amaro, our GM in 2009. He walked in. He's like, no mention of it, or it'll turn into the bird flu World Series. Both teams have gone over this. PR's talked to everybody. It's not affecting you guys enough for it to really matter. But I remember pitching up to the point. Posada hit a broken bat, bloop single to drive in a run off me, and up to that point, Peter Gammons pointed it out, and shame on Peter for saying it to me. But he said, "Hey man, you haven't given up a run the last couple of weeks of the season and the playoffs, and we have faced all the and of course, you
know what that means.
Like Posada, Jorge he'll catch a ball off a label and throw it over the infield with the best of them, right? Well, he did it to me, and then I think I faced Jeter in Game 6. Threw him a changeup, and he had a fly ball into the gap. And we had Francisco on left who didn't run well, Victorino, who's a hell of an outfielder. And he just said, I didn't pick it up till late. And it didn't even land on warning track, but you know how big left field is there if you're shaded at all. And I remember seeing it in the air and thinking it's an out. Might move a runner, it's an out. And it finds dirt. The place goes nuts. You know, there's beer getting poured on our family section. Like, it's part of being there, you know?
Yeah.
And then, and having been in the, having won it, I don't know what would be better. You lose the first one, win the second one, or win the first one, lose the second one, because I was able to like process it differently in the playoffs and everything in 09. I slowed it down, but watching the Yankees celebrate in person, first year of their new stadium, like all the different stuff. And I just remember thinking like, they beat us. We were really good. PD didn't make great decisions with his, 89-mile-an-hour fastball versus the 99 he used to have. But it felt like the coolest experience in baseball is to go into New York in October and play baseball there. And it was really cool. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It sucks that we lost. I think we win a couple more in the next couple of years if we win there. The next year we got beat by, big time, Tim Lincecum and Baumgartner, and they shut us down. And 11, they were really good too. I ended up somewhere else, but should have signed back with Philly. We screwed that one up. But yeah, it's just anytime you go into New York to play either one of those teams, it's electric.
Yeah, it's okay. So I'm going to get back to a game where you messed up my 4th of July barbecue in 2008, July 4th. You pitched a couple of great innings against the Mets. I had a barbecue, I had everybody over. We had the game on in the backyard, grilling, having some beers, and you struck out 6 Mets that day. Do you remember that?
I remember facing a couple hitters, Beltran being one of them. I'm sure, right? I don't know if Francoeur was on the team. I think he was in Atlanta that year. But there were a couple times where, I'm sure you're like, who's this Durbin guy? Where the hell did this Durbin guy come from? But I just, I learned, I had cutter and sinker in 06 and 07. I started to throw it. And when I got those synced up with a decent breaking ball, I could get some guys out. And it felt different. It felt good early in the year to go into Shea and whether y'all came into us and play them well. I mean, you play the Mets well in Philly, you get a little crown with it. They're like, hey, here you go. Good job. And I remember thinking about, I wanted to keep going. Like it was one of those where I think I struck out Beltran to end my last inning. And, they got the handshake out like, all right, you're done. We're going to roll these other guys in here. But when you're going good, you want to keep facing guys. Yeah. I think there was one point where catcher came out. I think it was actually Chris Costa, not Chooch catching. And he said, hey, what do you want to do here? And the cutter was good that day. I said, as many cutters as it takes. We'll throw 7, 8, 9 of them in a row if we have to. And, it's just a lot of fun to face that group. And you don't realize that 45,000 people are there until they make noise. Sometimes if you've been doing it a while, I guess when you're younger, you hear everything. But when you're older, it's like you're locked in, you're making your pitch, you strike out Beltran and the place goes bonkers. And in my head, I can see the Beltran that was not even swinging left-handed in 1997. He didn't even swing. He wasn't even a switch hitter until the fall of 97 in instructional league, believe it or not. And now he's a Hall of Famer, and I get to tell that story. But yeah, that was I'm sorry I ruined your barbecue.
That's okay. Okay, we got a viewer question. Joe Dell wants to know what your go-to pitch when you need to take somebody out was.
So I didn't throw it as many guys, purposely. When I was younger, it was a 4-seamer. You can't miss. There was a time. Okay, so Chris, you probably won't remember the moment, but I remember this happening. I was in my rookie year in 2000. Clemens hit Mike Sweeney in the head. Okay. And Jay Witasick was pitching for us. And Jay played for the Kansas City Royals, played for San Diego. But they told him, okay, Roger hit Mike first inning. You got to hit, Knobloch or Jeter. He goes out there. I think he walks one of them, gives up a hit to the next guy. And I remember them picking up the phone. There's the phone to the bullpen, and then there's another phone in there. That phone goes upstairs. that phone upstairs, hey, I want him out of here by tomorrow, because he didn't drill somebody with it. So anytime I was told, like, hey, man, you got to drill somebody, it is what it is. Like, hey, we can talk about, oh, it slipped and all that. No, I'm not going to say it to the media, but somebody says, hey, 26 needs one in the ribs here, don't miss. As I got older, I hit guys. It was more of a cutter getting away from a lefty and getting in on a guy. I was really trying to move guys more than I was trying to hit them. Very rarely does a middle reliever come in to do that type of job. It's usually the starter or somebody else.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Okay. And I'd see that you, I looked back, your hitting stats. You have 2 career hits. Do you remember those at bats at all and who you hit them off of?
So my first hit was off of a lefty with the Pirates. And I'm brain farting on his name right now. I did hit 318 in AAA. I got to throw that out there real quick. But that doesn't show up on the back of the card.
Zach Duke was the guy
Duke, yeah, lefty throwing 88, 87, and I just fired one to right field. The second hit was, I remember getting a sac fly in Atlanta. I'm trying to think when that other hit would have been. I know I hit a couple. What's that?
The sac fly was on ESPN. It was on a nationally televised game, by the way.
Yeah. It was with Detroit. It was my last start. Or no, it was my first relief appearance. I came in relief on that one, and they gave me an AB because I was throwing well. And it was against I switch hit. So the lefty comes in. I'm actually facing the guy, and the sliders aren't going away from me and stuff. But yeah, I remember lining out a couple times. I don't have a ton of at bats. You get 1 or 2 hits right there, and that average jumps a ton.
Yeah.
I hit a line drive, first baseman for Tampa, Cantu.
Yeah.
Bases loaded, and I hit one hard, and he made a diving play, and maybe a foot into fair territory. I run well. I did then. I would blow both hammies out even thinking about it right now. But I'm getting 2, maybe 3. And I'm like, oh, this is, and the seat catches it, it's over. And, there were several at bats. So I faced Todd Ritchie in Pittsburgh while I was with Kansas City. And Jack Wilson was a shortstop, hell of a shortstop. His son now is with the A's and all that stuff. But I hit 2 ground balls into the hole, and my foot touched the bag before that glove popped both times. And the umpire, like, first time it was just, you're out. Second time, Todd Ritchie had a no-no, and it's the 6th inning. And so I hit the bag, and he goes, Chad, we can't call that a hit for the first hit of the game. It can't happen. And I remember thinking, like, that's BS. Like, just call it how it is, but it was one of those, I'm sure Jack is like, holy crap, that little dude was running, but I remember I got 2 at bats. I got an 8 inning. I gave up no runs in that game. Went 8 shutout, 2 at bats. That's it. And I was like, wait, I should have got more ABs. Really? How does that happen? But like he shoved against us, and it was what it was.
Yeah, that's a great story. Really, you should have broke up that no. I mean,
my foot hit that bag before the pop. I know that.
Yeah, that's just.
Well, your second hit was off Aaron Cook, by the way, against Colorado. I don't know.
Oh yeah. I do remember that. I remember. So Jimmy came up right behind me, and it was with Phillie, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jimmy came up right behind me, hit a ground ball into the hole, right-handed. So he's facing Cook, hits it in the hole. Tulo goes to second, and I beat the throw, and they gave it a hit. And so and Jimmy's like, hell yeah, I'll take one if I can get one anytime. But I remember, and I remember Tulo kind of looking at me like, this prick. What are you doing? Why are you running so hard? Like,
right, you're a pitcher. You're not supposed to be doing that.
Hey, man, shuffle, go. I mean, I got there.
In 2000, against the Yankees in the World Series in 2009, Pedro Martinez was your teammate, and he did pitch that Game 6. You guys lost the series against the Yankees. But how was it? How was Pedro as a teammate for that 1 year?
He was awesome. He came in mid-season, and Petey's just a wealth of knowledge. Obviously, he was 87 and 91, maybe touching 2 or 3, right. But still just, change up anytime he wanted. The curveball and cutter and fastball still had life to it, even though it wasn't hard. But also, like, willing to have conversations and talk pitching and learn if you wanted to. did a really good job for us. I mean, outside of, I think he thought he could get Matsui out in game 2 and game 6.
Yeah.
And the approach would have been great if it was his old stuff. It just wasn't his old stuff. And Matsui was on fire. But you pick who you want to go at it in that series. Who's hitting behind Matsui? A-Rod? Teixeira? Like, who are you gonna let beat you?
Yeah.
And so I get it. Like, hey, I'm gonna try, but he tried to go in, and Matsui was just bailing on everything and pulling everything, and he caught a couple. But yeah, PD was a lot of fun. Pedro was awesome to play with, and just sit behind on a plane and just be like, that's Pedro freaking Martinez. Yeah. This is cool.
That's great. And, when you think about it, you got to play in 2 consecutive World Series. There are some of the greatest players in Major League history who don't even get to play 1 World Series game.
No doubt.
And, so no matter what, you have that, and you have a world championship too. So that's great.
It's like it happened to someone else a lifetime ago, to be honest. I mean, I'm 48. I have kids that are, 12, 13, and 18. And I get reminded every now and again, you'll see somebody. I mean, we have a lot. Baton Rouge, because of LSU and Louisiana's got, for per capita, a lot of talent. Like, a lot of guys go out and end up playing pro ball. And so you just run into a guy, and, they've got to tell their, like, 14-year-old son, well, this is, Chad Durbin. He went to school here in town, went out in the pro draft, and, won a World Series in 08. And you're like, but I guess that is kind of the intro, right? Like, this guy pitched for parts of 14 years and won a World Series. And I'm like, I lost one. I was on a roster that lost another one. And just, very, very fortunate. 2 different careers. I feel like I lived in 3 different eras. Like, my 99, 2000 kind of window was kind of that steroid era where so many guys, and it was just running rampant. And I would go at 195 pounds going into an off season, and I'd come back and guys would have gained 20 pounds. I gained 7. And then, you ran into the backside of that. I want an asterisk by all those home runs I gave up, by the way, all those high ERAs early in my career. I want the asterisk for the opposite reason. And then at the middle of my career was kind of like the transition into, this is what baseball looks like without the steroid era. And it was pretty good product on the field. Really good players. You're looking at some of those guys that are, now in the Hall of Fame now and going in. And then at the end, it was kind of this breaching of the data era where in the Phillies, because we were winning, we didn't really have an analytics department that was like, really pronounced, versus the teams that were trying to like win again or make some adjustments. The Dodgers had an incubator out there, and obviously that worked out. But data-wise, Allard Baird was with the Mets for a little while. He was with Boston. He called me in the 13 offseason. I was a free agent again. And he said, Chad, I know you don't want to hear this. We want you to go to Pawtucket. We want you to start. Your curveball it spins in some of the elite ranges. Your cutter tunnels really well with it. And we would probably can the changeup, and you would throw sinker to complement that tunnel. And Chad, you could be a starter within a month in Boston, and we're going to be really good. And all I remember thinking is like, man, it's 7 years in a row where I haven't sniffed the minor leagues except for like coming back from a hammy or something. Like Allard. And I love the dude. He was my GM in Kansas City. I'm like, I can't go back. I'm not going to AAA. It's not happening. But I remember that was the first time that like, I said, so tell me why. And at the time he was like, no, that's information we have. This is what we'd encourage you to do. He didn't even say the part about you having a high spin rate and you this matching and all that stuff. But yeah, that was so that era is now the era. We're kind of in that one beyond that one. Like it's like it got scattered and shot up a little bit. But I'm having to figure it all out because I have a pitching academy here. We do remote stuff, performance pitching academy. We've got to have the kind of the balance, Rob and Chris. Like you got to be old school enough to be like the 6 inches between your ears and throwing strikes, being able to execute under pressure, still always going to matter. But you need to know your data. You need to have an idea of what your TrackMan data is and how StatCast plays. I did broadcasting in 22 with the Phillies, and you bring up StatCast, you have it open, and like after every pitch, within 2 seconds, Zach Wheeler's stuff pops up, and you get to see exactly what it was. And it's an advantage. Like if you can process information at a pretty quick clip, like advantage you. Like you can actually eliminate, if you were going to throw a pen just to give you a quick idea, this is a quick, kind of anecdote.
Okay.
If I'm throwing a 30-pitch pen, usually if you were trying to see whether or not a slider grip is working, it might be, I don't know, 10, 12, 15, 16 pitches in before you're like, all right, now I'm getting it to repeat. Because you're seeing the spin, you're seeing a little dot on the top of the ball, so its axis is going down. Now you throw one, and TrackMan brings it up on, the iPad, and you're like, okay, throw one more of those with that grip. Maybe try this grip. Boom, third pitch in, I'm where I was at pitch 14. So the data for guys that can process, or you have guys that are like, I don't give a crap about it. Don't talk to me about it. Just tell me whether it was good or bad. You know what I mean? And fair enough. That's good too. But that's why you're seeing, such a variety of approaches amongst 30 teams.
Well, what are your thoughts now? You're talking about the game now. We're going to see the ABS system being brought into the league. Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on that? Because I think Chris Sale brought it up. He says, I would never challenge a pitch because he goes, everything I throw, I want that pitch to be a strike. And he goes, the way they catch, it almost looks like a strike on every pitch anyway. So I would be the worst person to say anything. So he goes, I'm never going to X-ray challenge. Well, what are your thoughts on the whole system?
That's kind of been my thought all along, is very few pitchers are going to, it really comes down to the catcher and the hitter, the ones that are closest to the plate. And you might have some pitchers that take that on. That's who they are. I would imagine like a Trevor Bauer, if he were, pitching the big leagues, he'd be a guy out there, triple tapping.
Right.
But I think catchers are going to have the best idea. And if they don't have to go to this new framing world where they're stealing the pitch and they're just sticking it again and really getting into the best position to throw a guy out, they're going to know within a couple centimeters of whether that ball was a strike or not. And it's going to come down to, the guys that are best at that. Winning the ABS, calls is going to end up being, the stat that kind of comes up a bunch in broadcast, because they're going to try to sell it as a positive. If it's as quick as it was, I watched some Arizona Fall League games, some minor league games. If it's, boom, boom, challenge, it goes on the board, and in 7 seconds we've got our answer, then I think it's a consumable, thing. If it takes too long, I mean, none of us like it, whether it's an NFL game or, a baseball game. Like, if I've got to sit and wait for 30 seconds while you numbskulls figure this thing out, you knuckleheads, like, then I'm going to turn the channel, and they don't want us turning the channel, And so and I see it with, if it's a quick process. I was against a lot of the new changes. And in 22, as a broadcaster, it was like, it was new. You got a shot clock, you got a pitch clock. You can't even tell a story because we get long-winded. It's over. Like, your story's over. Like, they're throwing the next pitch. And so I think that part ends up being good. It's executed well. It's taught in the minor leagues. So by the time guys get to the big leagues, it's good. I'm not crazy about you pick the first and an umpire puts a finger out. You pick again, they put 2 out. Like, okay, that's the one that I'm like, but a lot of the rest of it, it's not like the product on the field is that far off from being really enjoyable to watch. So I do enjoy the game today. Against a lot of the former guys I played with, they're like, "Oh, screw you, Chad," blah blah blah. Like, I don't know. I still enjoy the game. I love the game.
Yeah, it's that, that's how I feel too. It's the game. And we're going to ask you, we always ask something for the last question. So we're going to ask you about the changes. And we got about 15 minutes left, but I wanted to know, what are some of your favorite cities or ballparks to pitch in? Or to even your favorite city when you were off on an off day. What are some of your favorite cities?
Man, I mean, it's the top tier is always New York, Chicago, maybe a Boston, right time of year. April in Boston can get a little chilly. Not as much fun to walk around.
No.
And honestly, like, San Diego is a really cool spot to have some extra time. Seattle used to be. San Francisco used to be. Walking around downtown, and it's not really an option anymore. So you kind of maybe don't look at it the same way. The guys now, I'm like, hey, how's Seattle? They're like, no, dude. Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Not unless you want to work on your 40 time. So that's out. Like, you're not going to do that. But we used to kind of hold our breath in the Midwest. You're in Central. It's like, okay, you're going to Minnesota, you're going to Detroit,
Yeah.
Cleveland, and then you're going to Chicago. It's like, okay, Chicago obviously is like what we're going to hold our breath to get ready for. And it was always fun to play there. As far as pitching, I guess I moved down here at 12, so I'm really from Louisiana. I say I grew up in Illinois. I grew up till I was 12. There's something about, you get used to the leather feeling a certain way. And so when I'm down south, whether it's indoors or not, when I'm in Texas in either spot, or I'm in Atlanta or either place in Florida, the ball, like the leather has some tact to it. You know what I mean? And so if the leather has a little bit of that to it, and look, the East Coast all the way up, like, how it gets in the summer, it might as well be Louisiana. It's 90 and 95% humidity. Yeah. But early in the season, you can't feel the leather. You go out west or Colorado or anything like that, and you can't feel it. Like, it's dry. I mean, you can't get enough spit on your fingers, all that stuff. So, I gravitated to liking pitching in some places that aren't the greatest places to go visit, but I like getting outs. And as far as I loved pitching, I hated actually pitching, but I loved being in San Francisco. That, just what a great spot to go play baseball. Here's a funny, so that stadium is a pretty cool spot. Playing them in the playoffs. Yes. Who's the lead singer for Journey? That was the Recluse.
Steve Perry.
Steve Perry, okay. Me, Ryan Madsen, Brad Lidge, we're all down the line in the bullpen in San Francisco before they put them behind the wall and everything. And it's, after the 7th inning stretch, and they start playing lights, City by the Bay, right?
Yeah.
And he's there. He's on the big screen. And Madsen bumps me. He's like, he's right up there. He's got one foot up on the rail, and he is lip syncing his own song. We're cooked. We have no shot at winning this game.
Yeah.
We're cooked.
Yeah.
This dude he's air micing his own song on the big screen. And it's like the color of the sky is like sunset, and the planes just flew over again. Like, we're like, oh, we're completely screwed. This is the coolest thing ever. But I loved playing there. And, they're really it's big league baseball. Now that I'm further removed from it, man, throw me in whatever number 30 is and throw me out there at 30 years old again, and I'm in. I'm doing it.
That's great. What team were you a fan of when you were a kid?
The Cubs. Ryan Sandberg, Leon Durham, Mark Grace, the two first basemen, the Penguin, Ron Say, who had a birthday the other day, Jody Davis, all of them. And so as a latchkey kid, you came home at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock from school, and mom's like, hey, you're in the house till I get home, cook some macaroni and cheese and do your homework. Well, the homework ain't happening. I'm turning on WGN and I'm watching this baseball game. So, I mean, those Mets teams in the mid 80s, you knew every guy. You knew every guy on the Cardinals. I actually played a lot more like the Cardinals. I ran bases. I was aggressive. But the Cubs, man, it was just so much fun to watch that team play. And so, I grew up a Cubs fan. And then as you I moved down south. We don't have a local, I mean, the Astros are 4.5 hours away. LSU's the biggest product close. And they had some teams. Skip Berman was putting out some, college teams that were pretty darn good. So you end up not watching it as much. And then when you play, you start pulling for guys and their families to get paid. You start to, kids are like, why are you pulling for Tampa right here? I was like, because my buddy's kid's pitching, that's why. And pretty cool. So Greg Dobbs, who I played with in Philly, my kids played ball. The kids, even though he's in Tommy John rehab, they have NIL deals. So they have these merchandise stores. You go in, you buy a shirt or a coffee mug or whatever. But all my buddies have kids that are playing college sports. So I'm like, man, send that. And so my daughter's wearing a Taylor Dobbs number 33 t-shirt to her volleyball practice the other day. I'm like, that's cooler than almost anything you could. Nobody knows how cool that is except me. I'm just like, that's a really cool moment. I just think it's I don't know why I brought that up, but I was just picturing it, and it's just cool to have played the game and do all the stuff we've done.
And real quick, how's your son making out with the surgery, Chad?
So he's 20 weeks out. I think he threw plyos for the first time today at like 30%. He had the same one as Tommy John's TJ3, where they keep the ligament and then they bring in a graft from his hammy. It's usually the palmaris or your hammy, and then they wrap it in a synthetic graft. So he's got like the same one Otani had, which is one of the standards now. I mean, he should be throwing in the next week or so. He won't throw a pen until maybe late July, early August. And he's pretty good, man. He's not big. He's 6 foot tall, but his metrics are really unique. He's kind of got a little unicorn status there, but he's a much better pitcher than I was. I don't know if he'll have the ability. I mean, you got to get lucky on top of lucky on top of lucky on top of good to do what we did. But he just, it's so many strikes. You just kind of like, how in the hell does he repeat like that? And so to be 18 and have a chance to go pitch at a top 20 program, it'll be a lot of fun. They played a team out of UC Santa Barbara. There's a kid named Jackson Flora. If you go to the Pitching Ninjas site, it was this kid from UC Santa Barbara. He was 95 to 100 the other day. He'll be a top 10 pick. And then the next day there was another kid. It was 94 to 98 with like Bugs Bunny changeup. I'm like, good Lord, what? And they were like, this is not the normal. That team's got two, top 2-round draft picks. But it's cool for him. It's cool for me to live that through my son a little bit. And Southern Miss is a good program. It's not too far from home. I would have signed up for him to go to Hawaii, to be honest with y'all. Just get away, go do it. Go have your own experience where you're not Chad Durbin's kid. You get to go make your own name, because you do fight that. A lot of big leaguers have to fight that until their kid go ahead. Yeah, they go ahead. Like Jack Leiter kind of pulled Al's name off his, moniker, because it's like, hey, I throw 100 and I'm at Vanderbilt, I'm gonna be okay. But it takes a while.
Yeah. So, all right, Chris, time flies. I'm telling you, the hour's almost up. Why don't you get to those questions? Because then we have to make those 2 quick announcements before we
okay. Chad, we always ask this question for our guests. If you were named MLB commissioner today, what changes would you make to the game?
I think I would add 2 teams.
Okay.
I think Nashville is a no-brainer. And then there's the creative process here. Do you put an international team in and figure that out and try to get supportive that way? It's really interesting. There's some parts of me that I'm player union heavy, because I was one. But I do think that, all the teams make money. Okay. So anybody that's saying they're not making money, they're lying. Okay. They're all making money. And the teams that are at the bottom, sometimes they're owned by, conglomerates with heavy cash. So they just don't want to spend money because it's a line item that shows it's in the black and not the red. So, whether it's, something so that the top 3 or 4 teams can't go spend 3x, 4x, but putting a cap or a floor on things is maybe not the answer. I do think the game's in a really good spot right now. I don't think there's going to be a work stoppage. But yeah, as far as being commissioner, I mean, there's some markets that would support the crap out of Major League Baseball.
And what about the ghost runner, Chad?
Oh, that's the worst. I understand why. I mean, it was so nice in the playoffs not to have it.
Yeah.
Like, it just felt like I'm watching baseball the way it's supposed to be played. Like we're not just going to plop a guy out there and, and you're as a reliever, you're like, I'm already like, let me give up my own double, let me walk a guy and throw one in the crapper and let him get to second on my accord, not because we want to speed up a game.
Yeah, well, we know why they did it, because of COVID. But once COVID is over, they should have got rid of it, just like they got rid of the 7-inning doubleheader, which, Little League. It drives me crazy, because I feel like when they go into extra innings, I feel like it's Little League. That's not Major League Baseball. That's just how I feel. Most of our guests, especially the ex-ball players, they can't.
I would get rid of that. And look, the picks to first. So the reason that I don't know. Look, I think about it this way: when I get a young, talented kid hitting, and I know he's froggy right now, and I can make him more impatient by picking the first 3 or 4 times during this AB, like let my veteran advantage kick in. Well, there's no advantage if I've just got to keep going.
Yeah.
And that's the pace of the game that he plays at. And I just think there's I don't know, there's a little bit of that baseball savvy that you've earned that you don't get to go execute on. So I take away that and a ghost runner and add some teams.
Yeah, that sounds good. That's what most of the guests say. Everyone. I think just one guy liked the ghost runner, but who wanted it for the 11th inning? Chris, do you remember that?
Oh, I forgot. But yeah,
Oh,
it's kind of universal. I think nobody likes that that ghost runner thing. I think that's something that could go away, and I think 99% of the fans would be very happy about that.
Sure
yeah,
thing.
definitely.
Real fans.
Yeah, right.
I have to make a quick announcement. That QR code up in the corner is for. We talked about this on Friday night. It's for the book Chief: The 3 Lives of Gene Locklear by Gene Locklear and Dr. J. Thomas. Both will be on the show in a couple of weeks. Gene played for the Yankees. In fact, he played for the 76 and 77 Yankees. Both of them went to the World Series. 76, Chris lost to the Big Red Machine. 77, Reggie with the Dodgers. So Chief is a unique guy. Native American Indian, went through a lot, made it to the majors, also an artist who had 2 paintings hanging in the White House. I've just finished the book. It's a great book. I appreciate them for sending it to me. So we're going to have them on, and we're going to talk about that book. So guys, if you want to see, when Gene comes on, it's going to be an experience because he's just a great guy, old time ball player. So you're going to love that. But Chad, do you have anything else? Do you have anything you're plugging? You said something about a pitching lab.
Yeah, we have a Performance Pitching Academy. It's you go on Twitter. I think it's at Performance. It's at PPABR 24. The year we founded it. Or you can go to Durbinator 37. It's on there too. That's Chad Durbin. That's my Twitter account or X account or whatever we need to say now. Yeah. We're on Instagram too. If you search out Performance Pitching Academy. Unfortunately, with pickleball or PPA means the pickleball association is PPA, but we picked it a while back, and the whole reason we did it, to be honest with you, was we're not anti lab, but we wanted to marry kind of both, give throwing programs and really play the mental game with guys, get them ready for the next levels. And we've done a really good job of the analytics to me make perfect sense. For whatever reason, my brain processes those at a really high rate. So we're able to give guys their best tools to go into their season, whether it's pro ball, college ball, high school ball, or guys trying out for high school. But yeah, Performance Pitching Academy. And then, just nothing else to plug really. Just, man, I'm glad y'all are doing this. It's really cool. Good show. Great questions. Be following y'all. I'll get the alerts on YouTube now every time you pump one out.
Cool, Chad. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Listen, we're going to put up next show on Friday night. We're going to put up the info for that for you. And we have great replays on SportsWire Radio and all over the place, and TikTok clips. We'll have clips of you on TikTok, which we have a ton of people on TikTok for some reason.
That's awesome. That's cool.
They love it. Yeah, they love the clips. So we're gonna do that. And listen, you have an open invitation to come on anytime you want to talk baseball, because we love talking baseball. We love talking baseball with you. And one quick question before we go, we have a minute. One of the listeners wanted to know if the Philly Fanatic annoyed you, or were you cool with the Philly Fanatic?
No, he's phenomenal. Phenomenal. Man, he gets it. He knows ball. Some of the things he pulls off are if you really know what's going on, if you're watching a game in Philly, and I'm watching that clock go down, but if you're watching a game in Philly and he's doing the lineup, or PA doing the announcing, and he has some kind of a move or dance for every guy in the lineup, it's an inside joke with the players. And so it ends up being just for us, we relate because we get to see him like nobody else does, Yeah. The guy's phenomenal at what he does. He's really good. And when you go do appearances and stuff like that, he kills it. He's like, I got this. I'll get him going. And then it's just layups from there.
That's great. Thanks again, Chad. This Friday night at 9 p.m. we have Nico Molica from the Romantic About Baseball podcast. He's going to join us to talk about Mets, Yankees, and all of Major League Baseball. Chris, you got anything else before we go?
No, that's it. Chad, man, thank you again for coming on. And just like Rob said, door's always open for you to come on again whenever you feel like talking baseball. If you want to promote anything, just come right on. Just let us know. And
Giddy up. I love it. Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
We'll see everybody Friday, 9 p.m.